So today I'm going to be installing the Oxford hot grips or heated motorcycle grips on the SV650. Seen a lot of videos on this and I've used them on previous bikes, so I thought it'd be a good idea to put out a video and show you how I'm going to do it. What you're going to need is of course, heated grips. I do recommend the Oxfords. I've used them on previous bikes and they're probably the best quality ones you can get. Yes, there are cheaper options, but the Oxford does have the smart controller, so if you leave it on by accident it won't drain your battery. What you're going to need is just a few simple tools, just a set of screwdrivers and a utility knife or an X-Acto knife, possibly. Sometimes if you can't get the grips off, you'll have to use those. I do like to try and get them off in one piece just in case I want to reuse them or I need to reuse them if I make a mistake installing these. And the other thing that's going to be optional is the sandpaper. So you might want to sand down the grips to get a little bit of a better grip. Inside the case here you'll find everything you need: the controllers, the wires, and the adhesive. Alright, so let me get the camera set up and show you one of the easiest tricks to get the old handle grips off. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is just take your Phillips head screwdriver and let's take these bar grips off here, and that's on there. Alright, don't strip these, that would be a bad idea too. There it goes. Make sure you set those somewhere where they're not gonna, the bar and grip somewhere where it's not gonna fall off, get scratched up, unless you're going for a scratched up look. And what you're gonna find if it's an older bike is you might be able to, you know, just kind of pull it or peel it off if the glue's kind of gotten old. But what I really recommend is grabbing yourself a hairdryer. Stole this one from the bathroom. Plug that in. Alright, that was done. Yeah, heat up the grip. You know, I'd recommend 2-3 minutes at least. You know, this is something that patience will be a virtue here. And what that's going to do is going to soften up the old adhesive glue in there that they use, and it'll make it so much easier to take these off. Alright. So let's just do a little alright, once you have the handles nice and warm, again not super hot, just needs a little warm, it should help you peel up the old handle here. There it goes. Alright, and with a little bit of luck and will, you'll be able to pull these off. There we go. One thing I should mention before we get the heated grips out of the box is that we want to go ahead and clean all this up. This is where your sandpaper is going to come in handy. Again, it's something that's optional. You could get a Brillo pad, I guess, or something, or just play with it for a little while, but a little sandpaper help you clean that right up. I've got here just some 120 grit. Don't scratch your bike, right? You see, just a little sandpaper. It'll make your day so much easier getting this crap off. Alright. Nice and cleaned up. So let's go ahead and open our grips here. Everything in the box, instructions. They have four different types: adventure, touring, retro, and sport. Sports bike. sports version, but doesn't really matter. Choose whichever you like. Sport's supposed to be more grippy. The Venture is supposed to be, a little bit more, soft. Touring, they might last a little longer. Retro, if you got an older bike, they might look a little better. Honestly speaking, from a personal point of view, I've never really cared about the handlebar design or the grip design. If it's comfortable and it's grippy, that's really what's important, right? All right, so let's throw that away and get this open here. So you're gonna find in the box, your power cable that'll attach to your positive, negative on your battery. You get your adhesive and some zip ties. And in the box you will find the mounting hardware for the power unit, and of course your grips, right? So which one is left, which one is right? Conveniently labeled. L for left, R for right. But if you do have a question, or if you're missing the labels for some reason, you just want to make sure the power cable side is towards the inside of the handle, right? Just like that. All right, so let's put this throttle side over here, and we'll put this guy on. So I recommend, just for the time being, test fitting these. So leave the zip ties on, and it might, yeah, there we go. I've never really had a problem with the clutch side, but the throttle side I have had problems with it not fitting. So what you want to do is always just test fit it, and a little bit of force and wiggling it back and forth, and it should get you to where you need to be. On the throttle side, if you really can't get it, a little dish soap goes a long ways. All right, so there we go, just like that. Again, that's a test fit. I'm not putting the adhesive on yet, right? What you want to do is make sure that your cable here is not going to be in the way of your clutch. See, I'm hitting, right? You don't want that. So twist that a bit down. All right, there you go. See how it's clear of the cable, and depending on your model, it might nicely line up with your indicator, your light switch, and your horn over here. But you also don't want to go too far, because otherwise this will be sticking out towards you, the cable here. So let's make sure, if we get it nice, we can line up with the other cables coming off a little bit that way. There we go. Again, it'll depend on your bike, but that's basically it. And what you might notice is that they might be a bit too long, depending on your model. They are trimmable, and so you can trim them back, but I don't recommend trimming them too much. Toss up the instructions at the end of the video. Or here, somewhere in there. What you do is you'll put your bar back on. Right. Something like that. Right. Yeah, I might just need to trim along this little lip here. But we'll give it a test fit. Let's throw that on there. Again, take your time with these, It's important to have control over the bike. It's important to have good quality grips and good placement. It's one of the reasons I really recommend trying to get the original grips off without having to cut them with the X-Acto knife. That way, if you do mess up when you're trimming them back, you do have a backup. All right. know what, actually, I am not going to need to trim this side. It looks like these are gonna fit quite nicely. Nice and clamped down. Yeah, that'll work. Alright, so let's get this bar end back off. And we will move on to the throttle side. Alright, moving over to the throttle side. This one you want to be a little bit more careful with. Yeah, obviously you can turn the throttle back and forth. Be careful with that. Same thing, take off your bar end. Might be a little tight. It's probably the first time these have been taken off since factory. We got this bike used about a week ago and I've been so happy with it. Went from a 16 horsepower thumper, and so this is quite a bit of jump in power and performance and reliability and safety for that matter. I found that in traffic this having a bigger bike has been a lot more respected, so I really appreciate that. There we go. All right, let's take that out. And that time we pulled out the whole end, so that was fun. For now, since we're going to take the handle off, I'm just going to leave this over to the side. And let's see here. Now what you'll find is that on the throttle side is there's often a lip that the handle will catch, right? You can see it's bouncing back and forth there. And you want to make sure that you're taking it off those lips, right? So you can see it wraps around this plastic bead here, right? Same thing over here. If you reach this point where it's not coming off and you're stuck on the lip, it's probably time to go ahead and take your X-Acto knife. And this is what I'm going to do here. So very carefully, you're just going to slowly cut in, make a little incision, that way you can just peel the handle right off. So again, take your time, nice and slow, nice and easy with this process. Don't want to cut anything, don't want to scratch the bike, you just want to cut the handle off. Once you have the line cut all the way down, very soft rubber, just peel that off. I would have liked not to have had to do that. It would be nice to, you know, have these as a pair of emergency grips if for some reason the ones we're putting on today got damaged, or if you wanted to go back. But sometimes that's what you got to do. So if you need to, go ahead, take your X-Acto knife, take your utility knife, cut down the edge and just peel that right off. This side, this is where it gets a little nerve-wracking. All right, you've got your plastic. Obviously you don't want to put sandpaper on that. You will put a little bit of sandpaper on it to give it a bit of texture, but you'll notice on your right side of your throttle grip that there is no way to get it over this little plastic bump. So freaks a lot of people out, but what we have to do, and I don't like doing it myself, is we take our utility knife and we cut that little plastic bump, just the bump. Yes, we cut that off. All right. So take your knife, very carefully, very slowly. You're gonna cut that off. You don't want to cut into the handle. You'll see that there's plastic on this side, plastic on this side. You just want to cut just that ring off. Take your grip, make sure it's gonna fit. All right. It should still be tight. All right. Put it on. Take it off. Now, depending on your model, you're gonna have this little lip that we talked about earlier, and we already cut that one off, but there's another one here. It's optional if you want to cut it off or not. If you don't cut it off on the Suzuki SV650 here, you're gonna have to trim down your Oxford grip. If you take the time with a knife and cut off that triangle lip, being very careful, you don't want to scratch the bike, you don't want to damage, you know, any part of the cables up here, you'll get a nice flush grip, right? So we're gonna cut the camera again, trim that off with a knife here, use what you've got available. This is my go-to crafting knife. Now we've got that flange cut off. Again, optional, and your bike might not have it, it might have it. Suzuki did. We're gonna take our right side grip, our throttle, and slide it on. All right. Not too much pressure there. It's all cleaned up. There you go. Give a nice push, and you can see we are now flush with our end, which is great. What you want to be careful of here, though, is we were checking before with the clutch. You want to be careful with the brake, right? So this is a brake going to hit that. The trick here, though, is you want to pull your throttle back all the way. Nice. Here we're going to be hitting the cable, right? So move it forward here. Pull it back again. Probably okay there. Probably a little bit more. There we go. Now, our brake lever is not going to interfere even if we're widely open. So we can go ahead, grab our included adhesive, and let's set this guy in. So we've got the placement established. Right? We've got our Oxford adhesive here. It's basically super glue, and it sets very, very fast. So let's go ahead and pull this off, right? Doesn't need to be all the way. Make sure you're kind of trying to keep, where the placement is. You don't want to twist it, don't want to turn it too much, right? Oh, or you could just pull it off. All right, let's make sure that's still okay. Yeah, it's still okay. Let's pull it 90% off. 100%. Try to pull it 90% off. Take your super glue. Try to give it some coating on all sides here. There we go. On the bottom. There we go. All right, set that down. And you only have a few seconds here, so go ahead, slide that right on. All right. Make sure you're still good. Still good. All right, let that set. It's only going to take probably a minute or so, if that much. All right, so all set there. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure your clutch doesn't hit, and then we'll be ready to put our bar ends back on. Earlier, when we pulled out the rubber grommet and everything, what happened, and this will happen sometimes, is that we lost the nut. It was, fell back inside. It wasn't attached to the rubber like it was. What I did to get it out was just take an Allen wrench, stick some magnets on there, poke it in there, and I was able to drag the nut back out this way. What you do next is take the rubber grommet that was in there, put the nut back in there like that. I'm gonna lay this right. So bar end, bolt, rubber grommet that we saw fell out earlier. Take your washer, take your nut. All you want to do is just get that thread started, right? So just like that, just get it started. Okay, we should have something. Looks like this, bit of a mess. It's okay. Push everything in there. Grab your screwdriver. All right. Now you should, in theory, be able to tighten this down. Just like that. Perfect. And now you realize, oh no, that's too tight, it's getting stuck. So back that off a little. Back it off a little more. A little bit more. Okay. Pull as you're tightening this. If you found what I just ran into, push that back, hold your bar end so that it's not touching the Oxford grip. Hold it. So it's like a millimeter gap there. And then see if we can tighten this down without it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so holding the bar end, just hold it out just a tiny little bit so it's actually not touching. That way our throttle is free to move. Let's make one more adjustment. Pull that bar up just a little bit more. Okay. One more. There we go. Alright, eventually, with a little time, a little play, you'll get it to where the accelerator snaps back like it should. Your bar end is tight on both sides. You're all set. Alright, so got our connector package. The instructions, they say to mount it on your left side mirror, just under your mirror with the 2 bolts. I've already got a lot of stuff on my bike on that side. I got my drive recorder, I got my USB charger here, right? So I'm not going to be putting it there. I'm going to put it on my throttle side, which is where I had it on my old bike. I know it's maybe not the best placement, or some people don't think it's the best place to put it. But personally, I didn't really find it inconvenient on my other bike. It's where I had it. It's where I'm going to be putting it on the SV. So inside the package, you'll see that we have some nuts and bolts, some adapters, some washers. That way if we need to adjust the length of the bolts so that we can fit it, we can do that. But let me move the camera. We'll undo the bolts here and get this installed. So for this part of the process, you are going to need a little washer and nut set. Should have mentioned that earlier. Oversight. So you will need a washer and nut set to install this. I believe these are 10 millimeters. It's the standard here. And grab my cheap little washer set. And they are not. I lied. They are more of a, let's see, are they a 7? No, they're not a 7, so they're an 8. And of course, why would they be a 7? 8, okay. 8 millimeters on the Suzuki here. So let's go ahead and get these loosened up. Okay, that's nice and loose. Be careful. Your brake reservoir is attached here. You don't want that falling. You don't want cables flying everywhere. Just loosen them up so it's sitting right there. Next, grab your adapter, right? How am I going to put it? Oh, like that. Like that. That. So, it depends on where you want to mount this. What I find the best thing to do is you're going to mount it in this position, like this, right? Then you'll be able to bend this metal down. This is very flexible metal. It's probably aluminum. I honestly don't know. I'm pretty sure it's aluminum. I don't think I could bend steel with my bender hands as much as I'd like to. Right. So that'll go there. And let's take out one of these bolts, just one. Again, we don't want this to fall. Set that in a very secure place, right? And see if we're going to need an adapter, and yes we are, because of the curve on our mirror. So we go in here and we grab one of these washers here. One of these guys, and that'll take us out just far enough so that we are not hitting the curve. We also want to grab one of the bolts that are included. So as you can see, bolt on the bike and the bolt that came with our adapter, they're a little bit different size. It allows us to bring that away from the mirror, that we're going to stay nice and flush and that we're not bending our adapter here around the bike frame. So again, this direction, go ahead, put the top bolt in, put your spacer, your washer, and let's just lightly thread that in. By hand is perfectly fine for now. There we go. That way, again, we're not dropping a reservoir. What I do next, grab another one of these longer bolts and another washer that came with the kit. We're gonna undo this bottom bolt. And put this new one in here. Now, if you want to go the extra mile, you probably go ahead and spray tape this black. I might do that in the future, but it's not for today. Let's go ahead and get this threaded in there. Hopefully without dropping anything. There we go. Put the washer on the correct side and it will probably help. The washer goes in the back, just like this. Yeah, and it tends to line up a lot better when you install it correctly. Grab your ratchet, and if you haven't loosened it too much, everything should be in the same space. If the bike's older, you'll clearly see the lines line up. And let's go ahead and tighten these up here. So these are snug. You don't gotta crank them down. You wanna break anything. All right. Now we can adjust this in a minute. If we have moved the mirror back and forth too much, we just have to open those, loosen those nuts back up. So let's go ahead and do that and make sure our mirrors are still where we would like them to be. Back up, put yourself in a riding position, and yep, they have not moved. The brakes are where they're supposed to be. All right, so that is all set there. Again, you can adjust this if you need to. Don't worry about it too much. The key thing is you don't want to drop your brake reservoir, you don't want to drop your mirror, you don't want to drop your brake, your master cylinder, sorry. Your master cylinder. Next thing you're going to do is grab the controller. Alright. Look like this, 2 buttons, plus, minus. Very simple. I do wish they would improve upon this. It's this design's been the same for quite a while now. It works, it's simple, it's a little plasticky, that's all I gotta say, but it does work, and that's what we're looking for. So what we're gonna need next is our bag. Again, in the bag you'll find these 4 small screws. Don't want to lose them, very small. And what you're gonna do is screw those screws into the controller from the top here. So just like this, hopefully you can see that. And grab your screwdriver and just get them all tightened down. Okay, and just ran into the problem I remember having before. Because of the angle this is set up, you need to bend this just to get us started, and you're not going to be screwing in that one there, this front corner, and I remember that from last time, but that's okay. 3 is more than enough. as I used it on the previous bike and never had any problems. Once we have our controller fitted to the adapter, the screws, I take this and just bend it down. Just something like that. So it lines up here. Not much flexibility left or right, but yeah, just like that. Alright. And the final step will of course be running the cables. So what we're doing here is just removing this one panel, which will give us access to be able to run our cables up here. We're also going to remove one more over here. We're not taking anything off, we're just going to take that bolt out, which will allow us to pull up a little bit on this plastic so we can see our cables as we run them back. And you'll notice that I've already taken the seat off of the bike here so we can reach the battery. You're going to take your cables, right? And you've got your controller cable, your clutch side cable, and the cable from your throttle, right? Clutch side cable, you're going to have to come down through your handlebars, following the group of cables, and then when you get to here, you're going to connect both the throttle cable and the clutch side cable to our adapter here. Right. And you'll see here in the middle, you've got black and red. That one is going to attach to the extension cable which runs to the battery. The red and white are going to plug into the right and left side, and it doesn't matter which side, they're the same. Alright, so let's run these cables along the top here. So again, we're going to run these cables down with the main set of cables. The clutch side is going to come down, and then it's going to inside here, going to cross over. Right, you want to put it inside the frame. You don't want it between your forks. You want it inside the little empty spot in the frame here. Right here. Bring it inside around here. Attach everything together. Then once we have it all together, we're going to thread it up through here. All right. So let's go ahead and do that first step. Once that's done, I will come back and we'll start going up through here. So we're going to take this bolt out here. Keep that somewhere safe. If you pull on this very carefully, not here, here is a Velcro. It's held in by Velcro, and you'll be able to loosen this piece up here. And then what we can do is get our connectors all put together, right? We can run our cable up through here, under here, and we'll be all set, and the cables are hidden out of the way. We don't need to take this off. It's a whole nother headache if we want to do that, and we don't want to do that. So we grab our cables and we can run them up through here on the Suzuki. Now that you've got your cables all run through here, optional but recommended, take some vinyl tape, electrical tape, wrap these connections, make sure they're going to be secure. Then when we're done, we're going to clean those wires back and tuck them into this little spot, and when we put our cover back on, it'll be nice and hidden in there safely and secure. The one thing we don't want to do is zip tie all of these wires just yet, because we want to make sure our throttle has enough room so that it can flex, and we want to make sure that we can turn our steering wheel back and forth. So you get those wires tucked in there, put the cover back on, get on top of the bike, make sure your steering wheel can go left and right both ways without pulling or snagging. Then carefully you're gonna zip tie, all of the loose cable along the cable roots here, right? And then when you get that done, you'll go back to your battery and you'll screw in your positive and your negative, start your bike, and make sure it works. Alright, now if everything is put together correctly and wired, and you should have your two new heated grips. Don't interfere with the brakes or the clutch together, and you should get your power indicators. Red max and various different levels. Green, and then if you press it one more, it'll turn it off. But again, it will turn it off by itself if you forget, so it doesn't drain your battery. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed installing the Oxford grips with me. I hope this guide was helpful, and if you liked the video and if it was helpful for you, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. Alright, have a great day everyone.